Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of North of the Six. Happy Friday to everyone out there. I hope you're enjoying the beautiful weather we've had here in Southern Ontario the last little while. Once again, it's Mike and Brad with you. We'll be covering a few different burning questions, hot topics for the episode today. So look forward to get started.
Yeah, and lots going on in the sports world right now. We're going to start things off with the Toronto Raptors here right away. And we're going to get into what they did do and what they didn't do. So an NBA trade deadline has passed, and as you see, both Mike and I have got our championship hats on right now as a little tribute to the team. And it seems like the roster's gone through a complete, a little bit of an overhaul since they lifted the Larry O'Brien Trophy in 2019. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what they did at the trade deadline, and the first deal they did was they traded longtime Raptor Norman Powell from the Portland Trail Blazers for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood. And, it was a trade that no one should really be surprised. Norman Powell played exceptionally well, actually very sensational for the Raptors this year. And he had a player option coming up at the end of the season here, and he's overplayed the value of his contract. He's getting paid $9.5 million this year, and he's probably played himself up into the $20 million range. So with that, the Raptors, they came out of crossing roads and they figured, got to make this deal and try to get some key pieces back. And Gary Trent's a promising player, and they got him on a rookie level contract right now, and I really like the move. And as far as Rodney Hood goes, just key veteran piece to see where he could help provide some help for this team in the second half of the season. And I like the move.
And I got to give a shout out as well to Norm Powell. Had a really good last few years with Toronto. Ups and downs really in his career, but really came around, as you mentioned, this year especially. So I had my Osmos for lunch today. Norm officially was a sponsor in Toronto for Osmos. So I had my lunch today wearing the hat. So yes, Norm is going to be missed. I'd like the deal if they can sign Gary Trent Jr. Right? Same kind of contract situation as Norm, expiring at the end of the year. I'd like it if they can re-sign him to a long-term deal in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 million a year. You look at Norm Powell, and you're right, he's probably going to be close to 20 million per season now in his new contract. So if they let Trent walk in the end of the season and he goes elsewhere, then I don't really like the deal, because what was the point then of trading Norm? You could have kept him maybe with a Lowry closed out this year, right? If you knew kind of in the back of your head keeping Lowry was an option. So I do like the deal if they can sign Gary Trent long term.
And see, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Masai Ujiri knows what he's doing, because after those, for those who don't know, they did two other trades as well. Terrence Davis was traded, and Matt Thomas as well, to Sacramento Kings and Utah Jazz respectively for second round picks. And for the Raptors to do those moves, I think that, behind the scenes, maybe we don't know, that I think they've got something locked up for Gary Trent. I think they've had some good conversations and wanting him to be a key piece for the future, because, we'll get into the Kyle Lowry situation. If Kyle Lowry were to leave as a free agent, then their guard depth is going to be really, really thin, at least going into the NBA draft. So as I mentioned, Kyle Lowry, that's probably even the bigger story, is the fact that they've kept him. And I'm going to let Mike take this one to see what his thoughts are.
And I was absolutely shocked. I think most Raptors fans were stunned that Lowry wasn't moved at the deadline. Philly came up. Then Philly wasn't interested. Then the Lakers became an option. Okay, cooled off a little bit. The Heat stepped up their offers. Right? There's interest was everywhere. You figure he's going to be going somewhere any moment. And, I was watching during deadline day, leading right up to 3 p.m. Minutes were going by. You think, okay, he hasn't been moved yet. What's happening? Are we waiting for other teams to step up their offers? You heard an example in Miami, Duncan Robinson's name being thrown around there a lot as someone coming in the opposite of the deal. The Raptors apparently had a strong interest in Tyro, but Miami wasn't willing to give up their young and upcoming star. So I don't know if it was a game of like cat and mouse with the GMs, Masai and those other GMs. Here's my offer, right? I've got other people interested. Take it, leave it. up your offer in return for Lowry. You know what? There's people that might say he overvalued Lowry a little bit. But to me, I think Masai, again, I'm shocked, but I think Masai did a good thing in saying, you know what? We didn't like the package we were getting in return. So, you know what? He's going to play out the year in Toronto. We still feel like we can compete in the East, in a weak East.
Yep. Yeah, see, I found it interesting too, because the biggest rumor I heard was the Lakers were in on Kyle Lowry. They were looking at him to be their third piece, and we may never know the true story, but I was seeing offers of the Lakers were offering a significant package, including Dennis Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, that young kid Horton Tucker, who's a really promising 20-year-old player, and a former Raptor. I think Alfonso McKinney was mentioned in the package as well. But we may never fully know if that was the full package or not. But and if it wasn't, I think majority of fans would be happy that Kyle Lowry is still a Toronto Raptor. You know, he's been, we can't say not the heart and soul of the franchise, and I think in his heart of hearts he wants to be here. And with the pandemic year too, not really being able to play in front of fans, and let alone not being able to play in Toronto, I think if they were to part ways, they probably want to do a proper send-off of some sorts. I don't know what that will look like. Maybe he'll resign for another year for the 2021-22 season, but I have faith in the Raptors management. The day fans question Masai, all of a sudden a move will come out of nowhere that the team will be a lot better off. So I think I'm okay with the deal, and let's focus on Gary Trent Jr. and see what he can provide. And to your point, I think the Raptors can still, with the play-in option this year, so essentially 10 teams making the playoffs, they can still squeak into that 9th or 10th seed, and maybe give Philadelphia or Brooklyn or Milwaukee a little bit of a run, a little bit of a scare, and just give Canadian fans something to cheer for, especially in a pandemic year in which the team is playing in Tampa.
Shifting our attention, just like we did last time, to the NFL, we're going to look at winners and losers from the NFC, and specifically we're going to ask ourselves, can anyone compete with the Bucs in the NFC or in the NFL in general?
Well, this is a very easy one. I don't know why we're debating this one. The answer is no. Nobody can compete with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The band is back. Tom Brady's re-signed with the team for another year. I think his cap hit's only $9 million for 2021 season, and that allowed the Buccaneers to bring the whole band back. They re-signed Ndamukong Suh on the defensive line. They've re-signed Shaq Barrett. They've re-signed Levante David at linebacker. They franchise-tagged wide receiver Chris Godwin. He's back. Rob Gronkowski's back at tight end. And they just re-signed running back Leonard Fournette. The band is back. And this team, last year after week 13, they were sitting at 7-5, and then they just caught lightning in a bottle. They went on to win their final 4 games of the regular season. I think Tom Brady led all quarterbacks in passing yards and touchdown throws. If not, he was definitely in the top 2 or top 3 in that category. And then they went on a sensational playoff run, which went on the road to beat a Washington team, went on to beat Drew Brees at Drew Brees, and they went on to beat Aaron Rodgers in the cold atmosphere at Lambeau Field. And then just that team went on to annihilate the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And now you're telling me that just everybody's back? There's nobody competing with them. There's nobody. Tom Brady will very likely go to his 11th Super Bowl and carry on his new dynasty that he started with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the band may be back together, and you make valid points about Tampa Bay, but I think it's a little ridiculous to say that it's not debatable. Yeah, the band's back together. I know Tampa's going to be a headliner in the NFC again, but there's also this other band out there that wants to be a headliner as well, and that's the Green Bay Packers, still with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. To say that the Green Bay Packers can't challenge Tampa in the NFC is a little ridiculous. They just brought back Aaron Jones on a new deal. The defense, I think, is very underrated. They don't quite have the receiving core, obviously, that Tampa Bay has, but you can never count Aaron Rodgers out in the NFC. So I think they're a really big contender that we'll probably see again in the NFC final.
Well, you're going to need some better play calling on the Green Bay Packers side of things if they, want to compete with Tampa Bay. That's the first thing I've noticed right away. And you do know that Tom Brady's been to 10 Super Bowls? He's been to 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it? You just got
I was aware. I was aware.
He won at the age of 43. And he's got the whole band back.
And,
and not to mention, he came into a new system last year. Now he's coming into this offseason with a familiar system.
Yeah, the system's great. Bruce Arians is great. Everyone's lovey-dovey, hanging out with each other. Tom Brady doing some weird yoga with Giselle, whatever it is. Yeah, they are going to be one of the top teams of the NFC again, right? But to say that Green Bay won't be back there challenging them, to think Tom Brady's just going straight to his 11th Super Bowl, you know how hard it is for teams to make the Super Bowl 2 years in a row?
Kansas City did
The odds are not in their favor. Yeah, very rarely happens. So to say that the NFC is a one-horse race is a little ridiculous.
In your
Never
heart
count
of
out the Green Bay
hearts,
Packers.
In your heart of hearts, would you pick Tampa Bay or Green Bay to make it to the Super Bowl? In your heart of hearts. Be honest with yourself.
I think it's a toss-up, right? I don't see it leaning one way or the other. Again, I mentioned how difficult it is to get back to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. We've seen historically teams after winning the Super Bowl, right, sometimes don't even make the playoffs. So again, I don't think that's going to happen in Tampa Bay. They have a very strong defense. Obviously, Brady with that receiving core is ridiculous, right? But I see Green Bay right there with them, and I could easily see Green Bay going to the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, you're as conservative as a cheese pizza. Anyway, we'll go on to the losers. Look, my loser in the NFC, this is just, I'll keep this short and sweet. It's the Chicago Bears. I mean, they signed Andy Dalton as their quarterback.
I gotta cut in there because that's the biggest joke I've seen in the NFL in the last little while. To feel like Andy Dalton can come in and be your number one guy is absurd. You know, if you didn't look washed up enough in Dallas last year, I don't know what else other proof they need, right? You got rid of Trubisky. Again, I hear Trubisky doesn't have the size, doesn't have the arm strength, doesn't have the accuracy, right? But his record was pretty impressive. You know, he was something about 30-18 as a starter in Chicago, right around those numbers.
People forget that.
They forget that. He's still young. He still was a top pick. So I just don't understand what's happening in Chicago.
They lost a key piece too, a little under the radar. They lost cornerback Kyle Fuller as well, and they just haven't made really any impact moves. And okay, I'll give Green Bay some love here. The Packers, do you think the Chicago Bears are going to challenge the Green Bay Packers? Even the Minnesota Vikings? I don't know. Like, is Andy Dalton going to go and win you 10 games, 11 games? I just don't.
Look, Rodgers is licking his lips because look at the quarterbacks he's facing for a total of 6 times next year.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
look
Jared
at the quarterbacks in that division.
Jared Goff in Detroit, who's, I think he's completely lost it. And Kirk Cousins,
You like that, Kirk? You like underperforming every year? I guess he does.
Yeah, if Kirk Cousins has to play Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers, that'd be the easiest bet you can make. If it's Monday night or Sunday Night Football, you can almost put that in as the lock of the week. So
add another 4 or 5 points to the line when he's facing anybody on a Monday night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If fans, any of you guys out there that play Bet365 or ProLine, little tip for you is just look at the lines when the Minnesota Vikings are playing prime time, and I gotta agree with Mike here. Add a few points here or there. So I guess yes, we can agree on this one. It's got to be the Chicago Bears, and unless they're doing something at the draft, maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't know what's going on in the discussions, but come on, major market team.
And if they're looking at the draft, okay, they're going to have to move up if they want to get one of these quarterbacks. Like, what's the plan there? Is it Andy Dalton for 1 year while we draft a QB and groom him? Is it forget the idea of a quarterback? We're just going to stay at number 20 in the draft and Andy Dalton's our QB for the near future? I don't really know what the plan is there. We could go on about Chicago all night, pretty much. Again, just like Houston, right? What the hell is going on in Houston? But I want to mention a winner who I think from the NFC, and I think they're going to turn some heads this year, and that's the New York Giants. All right, people love to bash the Giants. Eli Manning won a couple of Super Bowls years ago. What have they done since that? A whole lot of nothing. But I like what they've done going out and getting all day. Again, had trouble staying on the field last year, but when he's healthy, one of the most talented receivers in the league. He's done Dory Jackson in the secondary. rounds out that defense a little bit more, right? And then you can consider a new free agent or a returning free agent coming back this year in Saquon Barkley. It missed pretty much the whole season last year. So you look at him as another acquisition coming in to join Daniel Jones, who's up and coming, right? I think he has a promising future. I'm going to give the nod to the New York Giants here.
Okay, so you know what? I could see your point if they're looking to win the NFC least this year. I could see maybe a 7-9 record like the Washington football team conducted last year. But it comes back to the most important position, the quarterback. Do you trust Daniel Jones or do you trust Tom Brady?
Daniel Jones, I think once he gets Saquon back this year, right? We've seen what he can do with his legs. As long as he's not tripping over invisible lines down at the 20-yard line. He's quick. He's a dual threat. He's got big arm strength. Now he's got Kenny Golladay. So I'm looking for a big season from the Giants.
Okay, well, in the NFC least, anything can happen, I suppose, right? So we'll have to see what happens. I think the Dallas Cowboys could have something to say to that, but that'll be a conversation for another day. We're gonna go shift gears back to the NBA. And with that, the NBA trade deadline's passed, as we mentioned earlier in this episode. But where we're focusing on for this question is which team made the most significant move at the deadline to bolster their championship chances. And where I'm going to go with this one is the Denver Nuggets. I like the move of getting Aaron Gordon from the Orlando Magic. The Magic, we know, were just a complete catastrophe this year. All that talent, but sitting 14th in the East. You look at their roster and you think, how in the world could that be? So I think it was time for them to unload, and they moved some key pieces. But the Denver Nuggets, they did what they needed to do and get that third piece. They were in the Western Conference Finals last year, knocking off the LA Clippers in the second round, and with superstars with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, they needed that third piece. They need that third wheel, and I think Aaron Gordon could be a good complement guy, shooting almost 38% from the three-point line. He's not a guy that needs to have the ball in his hands all the time. I think he could be a good complementary piece for them, and they got some additional rim protection with JaVale McGee. I know he's been featured on Shaq's in the Fool a few times with some boneheaded plays, but the man can rim protect, and that could help if they're matched up with the Los Angeles Lakers, and if they're facing the Lakers with a healthy Anthony Davis down the road at some point. So I really like what the Denver Nuggets have done. I think they could be a very sneaky dark horse to get back to the Western Conference Finals this year, if not the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I like what Denver's done a lot. You mentioned the key acquisitions there, and they've definitely bolstered their lineup. I'm going to focus on another Western team, and again, give some love to Norman Powell and focus on the Portland Trailblazers. Picking up Norm Powell, a guy who's in a career year, right, adds that ability to shoot the three, but also create from a column for Dame Lillard on that team. So I really like Norm Powell in that offense. Again, they're thinking, why do we get rid of Gary Trent to get a Norm Powell? Aren't they pretty much the same player? Just Powell's an older version. But I think Powell has a more well-rounded game where those guys can really feed off him. So I really like what Portland's done. And like you said with Denver, I think Portland can challenge, these other teams in the West and potentially reach the Western Finals.
Yeah, fans, I think this year, many people love the Los Angeles Lakers and Los Angeles Clippers and want that dream Western Conference Finals to happen. And I get it. I would love to see that as a fan too. But these other teams, though, they've got great rosters. And, let's not forget about the Utah Jazz as well. I know they didn't really make any significant moves, but, they're quietly sitting at first place in the Western Conference. And, they're just continuing to do their thing. So, bottom line, I think the NBA playoffs is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be very hard to predict, but Mike and I will follow along, dissect it as much as we can, and we'll give our feedback on what we think will happen come playoff time.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you appreciated the episode. Stay tuned for more episodes coming. Again, make sure you hit us up on all of the social links provided.
And hit that subscribe button below. Until then, see you next time.